Good afternoon, you are watching AnewZ. I'm Bakir Sanov and let's see the top stories. US President Donald Trump signs an order doubling tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from 25% to 50%. South Korea's newly elected president Lee Jae-Myung has officially taken office. Turkic world's cultural footprint honored at Berlin conference. The United States is escalating its trade defenses with a sharp increase in tariffs on key industrial metals. The move signals a renewed push by President Donald Trump to prioritize domestic production, even at the risk of straining international economic ties.
In a sweeping move to bolster domestic industry, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order doubling tariffs on steel and aluminium imports from 25% to 50%. The decision marks the second major hike since March and takes effect Wednesday. Trump says the measure is vital for protecting the American steel industry and reducing reliance on foreign suppliers. Speaking at a US steel factory rally, he argued that only high tariffs would force businesses to buy American.
If you don't have steel, you don't have a country. You don't have a country. You can't make a military. What are we going to do? Say, let's go to China to get our steel for the army tanks and for the boats and ships. A strong steel industry is not just a matter of dignity or prosperity and pride. It's above all a matter of national security, and it is.
But the announcement has stirred unease at home and abroad. Critics warn of steep consequences, higher costs for US manufacturers, potential retaliation from trade partners, and deeper disruption to global supply chains. Some affected firms expressed disbelief that the policy was going ahead, hoping it might be a bluff or bargaining tactic. The UK, however, secured a partial exemption. Its tariffs remain at 25% amid ongoing trade talks with Washington. Meanwhile, the US, already the world's largest steel importer after the EU, sources much of its metal from countries like Canada, Brazil and South Korea. This latest move reverses earlier carve-outs and exemptions Trump deemed too lenient. Though imports and US production levels had remained relatively stable in recent months, April saw a 17% drop in steel imports. Industry watchers now expect an even sharper decline. Canada and the EU are reportedly readying counter-tariffs in response.
More than 200 wildfires are raging across Canada, prompting mass evacuations and deteriorating air quality, with smoke affecting parts of the US Midwest.
Canada is facing a severe wildfire crisis, with over 200 active fires across Saskatchewan, Manitoba and Alberta. Among these, 106 are classified as out of control, leading to the evacuation of more than 27,000 residents. In Saskatchewan, the situation is particularly dire, with fires expanding to hundreds of thousands of hectares, breaching the La Ronge airport and affecting thousands of people.
It has impacted, like with children, being able to go to sports practices, events getting canceled and things like that. We haven't seen it yet with these wildfires, but I think it's coming probably even today.
The smoke from these wildfires has not been confined to Canada. It has drifted southward, causing hazardous air quality in the US Midwest. Minnesota issued its first ever maroon air quality alert, indicating very unhealthy conditions. The smoke has also reached as far as Cincinnati, Ohio, and even parts of Europe. Health officials are urging residents in affected areas to limit outdoor activities and use respirators when necessary. So far, 1.9 million hectares have burned in 3 provinces of Canada. Experts attribute the severity of these wildfires to prolonged drought and high temperatures, conditions exacerbated by climate change. They warn that such extreme weather events are likely to become more frequent, underscoring the need for comprehensive wildfire management and climate mitigation strategies.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced a shakeup in his military, including the appointment to a new post of a commander who tendered his resignation over a deadly Russian attack. Zelensky has placed Mikhailo Drapati as the new commander of joint forces. Drapati, previously serving as commander of Ukraine's land forces, offered to quit after a Russian strike killed 12 service members under his command. The Ukrainian president also announced the approval of other personnel to new posts, including Oleg Apostol as commander of paratroops and Robert Brody as commander of unmanned systems. Kharkiv was shaken by explosions during the night as Russian forces launched a combined missile and drone attack on the city, according to the local authorities. The assault lasted around an hour and a half and primarily targeted civilian business premises in the Novobarbarsky district. According to Mayor Igor Terekhov, at least 10 drones were used in the strike, alongside missile fire that damaged non-military infrastructure. An air raid warning had been issued shortly before the attack began, prompting residents to seek shelter. One person has been reported injured, and emergency services are now assessing the full scale of the damage. Ukraine says it hit 41 Russian military aircraft during Operation Spiderweb, a series of drone attacks on air bases deep in Russian territory over the weekend. The Kremlin said a formal investigation was launched.
The Kremlin has launched a formal investigation into a series of Ukrainian drone attacks that struck multiple Russian military airfields over the weekend, one of the most damaging operations of the war so far. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said President Vladimir Putin had been kept updated in real time and that official inquiries are now underway.
An investigation is ongoing. The president was informed as events unfolded. I suggest waiting for the results of that investigation.
The attacks claimed by Ukraine's domestic security service, the SBU, reportedly hit 4 air bases and damaged 41 aircrafts. Ukraine says the drones were launched from inside Russian territory, concealed in wooden sheds near the bases, part of an operation over a year in the making.
The operation was prepared for over a year and a half. Planning and details were perfect. The drones launched from sites near Russian FSB departments.
Footage shared by Ukrainian officials shows drones packed into containers, then launched remotely as roofing panels lifted off. The strikes came the same day as a separate deadly incident, a train derailment in Russia's Bryansk region that killed at least 7. Russia says a bridge was blown up while a passenger train was passing. A rail bridge in nearby Kursk also collapsed. No one has claimed responsibility. And while Ukraine views the strikes as a precision blow against Russia's long-range threat, Moscow is now focused on uncovering how such a coordinated assault reached so deep inside its territory. The outcome of the Kremlin's investigation could shape how Russia responds, militarily and politically, in the days to come.
Russia's Federal Security Service says it has detained a man linked to the underwater explosion targeting the Kerch Bridge linking Russia with illegally annexed Crimea. This operation, claimed by Ukraine's SBU security service, marks a bold escalation, coming just days after Kiev struck Russian strategic bomber fleets with long-range drones. To analyze the strategic, military and political implications of this development, I'm joined by Taras Kuzio, political analyst based in London. Mr. Kuzio, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
Mr. Kuzio, in your view, how might these attacks shift the broader narrative of the war, especially considering the perception pushed by the President Donald Trump's administration that Ukraine is losing leverage?
Well, I think the Trump administration has this misplaced view that Russia is somehow this very powerful Soviet Union still. And that has been proven to be wrong in the last 3 years. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion in February 2022, most Western governments, including the United States, were convinced that Russia would quickly defeat Ukraine. And this was a product of an exaggerated perception of Russia as this mighty military power, the so-called second best army in the world, and an underestimation of Ukraine. And this this kind of view has continued to remain in place among so-called military experts, Western analysts. And so the Ukrainian response is to counter this mythology that we saw in the White House in this conflict with Zelensky and Trump in February, that where Trump said Ukraine has no cards. Obviously, Ukraine has many cards, and it showed this with this and there will be more attacks, including on the Kerch Bridge. Ukraine is now the most innovative military force in the world, and it's proven that's the case. When you are in many ways the smaller country, you have to be more innovative. You have to be more advanced in your research and production, and Ukraine has shown that. Russia is not winning the war. There is a kind of attritional stalemate, but certainly Russia, I would not call 3 years of war leading to 1 billion Russian casualties a victory or a success.
Mr. Kuzio, but how do you assess the potential Russian response, militarily or politically, given the symbolic value of the Kerch Bridge to the Kremlin?
The Russian response will be typical for what has Russia done in the last 3 years. It'll try to kill civilians. This is the only way that the sociopath Vladimir Putin understands how to conduct war. It's destruction, it's murder, it's the killing of innocent people. He won't go after the military, he'll go after civilians. And that was seen just yesterday when Russia cluster munitions against the city of Sumy, which killed many civilians. So this will be the typical Russian response. Of course, this is something for Putin, but I think one of the most important factors here is that the increased pressure by Russia against Putin, because there must be now many Russian military officers who are saying, if we continue this war, we will have no army left soon. And we will be able to fight NATO because there will be nothing left.
Taras Kuzio, thank you very much for joining us and for your insightful analysis. We truly appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
South Korea's newly elected President Lee Jae-Myung has officially taken office following a scaled-down inauguration ceremony held at the National Assembly in Seoul today. His swearing-in comes just a day after winning a snap election, signaling a major political shift in the country's leadership.
Lee Jae-Myung was officially sworn in as South Korea's 21st president on Wednesday during a scaled-down inauguration ceremony held at the National Assembly in Seoul. The 61-year-old former human rights lawyer takes office after winning Tuesday's snap election with 49% of the vote. He defeated Kim Moon-soo of the Conservative People Power Party, who secured 41%, signalling a major liberal shift following the ousting of former President Yoon Suk Yeol. The election was called amid widespread public backlash over Yoon's attempt to impose martial law.
I solemnly swear before the people that I will faithfully carry out my duties as president by upholding the Constitution, defending the nation, striving for the peaceful reunification of the homeland, promoting the freedom and welfare of the people, and advancing our national culture.
Following his oath of office, President Lee outlined his administration's priorities, vowing to restore democracy, rebuild the economy, and ensure national security through dialogue and strong alliances. Conservative challenger Kim Moon-soo conceded defeat early Wednesday, offering his congratulations to the new president.
I humbly accept the will of the people. I extend my congratulations to candidate Lee Jae-Myung. I will never forget the overwhelming support and encouragement the people have given me.
Thousands of Lee's supporters gathered in central Seoul late into the night to celebrate the victory. As Lee begins his 5-year term, the nation watches closely, hopeful that his leadership will bring stability, unity, and renewed momentum to South Korea's future.
South Korea's newly inaugurated President Lee Jae-Myung named a new prime minister and top cabinet positions during a news conference at the presidential office. Lee nominated Kim Min-sok, a 4-term lawmaker from the Democratic Party, as prime minister. He also tapped Lee Jong-sok, a former unification minister, to head the National Intelligence Service, and Kang Hoon-sik, a fellow Democratic Party lawmaker, as presidential chief of staff. The president said the selections reflect his priorities of economic growth, national unity, and lasting peace on the Korean peninsula. Aid distribution centers in Gaza were shut down for the day after dozens were killed near a U.S.-backed site. The Israeli army now considers roads to these locations active combat zones.
Aid delivery in Gaza was suspended on Wednesday after at least 27 Palestinians were reported killed near a food distribution site in Rafah. The deaths, confirmed by Gaza's Hamas-run civil defense agency and the International Committee of the Red Cross, followed days of violence around US-backed aid centers. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, which is supported by the US and Israel, said the one-day closure was for logistical improvements. But the Israeli military declared roads to the centers combat zones and prohibited civilian access. According to the Israeli army, its troops opened fire on individuals it described as suspects who left designated access routes near the aid site. It did not confirm directly targeting civilians, but hospitals in the area reported gunshot wounds among those injured while waiting for aid. Aid workers and witnesses described the scene as chaotic, with no crowd control or ID checks. This was the third such incident in as many days. Previous clashes on Sunday and Monday also left dozens dead, according to UN monitors and local authorities. The GHF, which began operations last week, runs its own distribution system outside of the UN network. It relies on US contractors to manage secure centers inside Israeli-controlled zones. Critics say the model is unsafe and forces civilians to walk long distances through conflict areas to collect food. The UN and other humanitarian groups have refused to work with the foundation, calling the approach unaccountable and dangerous. UN officials said the current setup puts lives at risk and described it as a model for how not to deliver aid. Despite growing concern, Israel insists the GHF allows aid to reach civilians while avoiding diversion by Hamas. The foundation claims it has delivered over 7 million meals so far. The United Nations Security Council is also expected to vote on a resolution demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, along with unrestricted humanitarian access. The draft calls for the release of all hostages and the lifting of all restrictions on aid delivery. It remains unclear whether the US will back the resolution or use its veto.
This is a deliberate denial of conditions.
The first international conference on colonial ideologies and realities opened in Baku, bringing together experts, scholars, and leading voices from around the world, looking to advance international collaboration and legal action aimed at dismantling systemic barriers that hinder decolonization.
An international conference titled Imperial Structure, Colonial Ideologies and Realities has opened in Baku, convening global experts, diplomats, UN officials, and lawmakers to examine the enduring legacies of colonialism and its modern-day manifestations. Organized by the Baku Initiative Group, the event marks the first of its kind to bring together scholars and professionals engaged in decolonization efforts across various UN structures.
Has published over 10 reports.
Executive Director of the Baku Initiative Group opened the conference by highlighting its unique focus on examining colonialism through a scholarly lens within the frameworks of international organizations.
Associate members,
the two-day forum highlights how former colonial powers hinder global progress and stresses the need for stronger laws, global cooperation, and full implementation of UN decolonization resolutions.
We have three dimensions of colonization. There is the real dimension, what happened to us, the death, the torture, the rape of the nations and the land, so on and so forth. But that reality has long been reversed. What the colonizer still keeps control over is the two other dimensions.
The forum also examined France's ongoing role in its former colonies, with several participants criticizing its actions and influence in Africa.
We must stand together, speak with one voice, and collectively condemn France's colonialist stance, which is still evident in various forms today. Part of the purpose of this gathering is to present factual and substantiated information. France continues to use the media to spread misinformation about its former colonies, and it's crucial that we challenge those narratives with truth.
The broader conversation around decolonization also touched on the effectiveness of international mechanisms and the role of advocacy efforts.
Recent statistics show that the voices of all territories still under colonial rule have now been conveyed to the international community. International organizations and several countries are beginning to support the fight against colonialism. Some express verbal support, while others show direct reactions.
Right now, there is a process under the C24, which is the Committee on Decolonization, that would assess the readiness of countries to become independent. Personally, I think that it is skewed towards the colonizer. I think that not the committee, but the questions that are asked.
The conference will continue with lectures at ADA University and the Azerbaijan University of Languages, focusing on how colonial thinking continues to influence modern international relations.
To help us unpack the significance of this conference and what it means for global decolonization efforts, I'm joined by Susana Mangana, professor at Deusto University from Bilbao, Spain. Susana, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this interview. I can hear you, but very distantly. Can you put your voice louder, please?
Susana, what does the launch of this conference in Baku signify in the broader context of global decolonization movements?
Well, I think it's very important for everyone to understand that colonialism in the 21st century is just totally unacceptable. Most of the countries and nations around the world have embraced democracy, and they want to adhere to international law, and especially they want to be respectful of the Declaration of Universal Human Rights. So protracted occupation like the one that is happening in Gaza or in the West Bank in the Palestinian land, but also aggression from Russia against Ukraine, I think they're just examples of how we have as humanity and how our international system is under attack.
Susana, how do you envision international collaboration evolving after this conference? Are there mechanisms or alliances being formed that could lead to sustainable, tangible outcomes?
Well, hopefully, I think it is very important that Azerbaijan, and especially in the beautiful capital of Baku, celebrates this important gathering, because it's an opportunity for all the nations participating to listen to one another. It doesn't matter whether you're a big country or a small nation in your region. Everyone has to defend equality between and among nations. So I think it's very important that the outcomes should celebrate the international law that has to be respected by all countries without any exception. So we are just witnessing the suffering of the Palestinian people who are being killed under the bombs that Israel throws against them, but also with the suffering of hunger. Hunger is being caused at the expense of the Palestinians. think it's very important that all the nations gathering today in Baku decide to start a new era where international law is prevailing, and also it's the basis for negotiations among countries and their international relations.
Susanna Mangana, thank you very much for joining us on AnewZ. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this interview. Thank you.
This year, the Baku Energy Forum celebrates its 30th anniversary. The event, hosting talks on renewable energy, regional cooperation and energy security, gathered experts from around the world to shape future energy strategies.
The Baku Energy Forum celebrates its 30th anniversary this year, bringing together global energy leaders to discuss security, technology and renewables. Azerbaijan's energy minister highlighted the country's key role in supplying oil and gas to Europe. Over 75% of oil and 51% of gas exports went there in 2024. With major projects and growing investments in solar and wind, Azerbaijan plans to reach 33.7% renewable energy by 2027. Pakistan's energy minister thanked Azerbaijan for its support in gas development. In an exclusive interview with AnewZ TV, the minister said Pakistan relies on friendly nations for gas, follows efficiency standards, and is working on a greener energy policy with a focus on stability and industrial growth.
I think one message that is evident to the world is that no country can, move towards a sustainable climatic environment on its own. So you have to cooperate, you have to thrash out holistic policies after understanding the needs of each other, and these forums provide you better understanding on how the strategies in other countries are working.
The Baku Energy Forum remains an important platform for ensuring sustainable development and security in the energy sector. The agreements signed and projects discussed here could pave the way for new collaborations and innovative initiatives in the future.
Guinea-Bissau, you have the oil and gas, okay, but not yet start its exploitation. So, Azerbaijan have the experience in the exploitation of oil and gas. For that, my country start design the framework to cooperate with Azerbaijan in this case. But another thing, you have the potentiality in the renewable energy.
Participants also discussed digital tech, clean energy, the 29th conference of the party's outcomes, and green projects. The forum runs until June 4th and includes meetings to strengthen local and regional ties.
The rich cultural and scientific legacy of the Turkic world took center stage in Berlin at a special conference highlighting its contributions to global heritage. The event, titled Contributions of the Turkic World to World Science and Culture, brought together scholars, diplomats and artists to showcase the depth and diversity of Turkic nations. The rich cultural and scientific heritage of the Turkic world was presented to the international community at a conference titled Contributions of the Turkic World to World Science and Culture, held in Berlin, the capital of Germany. Organized under the auspices of the International Organization of Turkic Culture, Turksoy, and with the cooperation of the embassies of Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan and Turkey, the conference was supported by the Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency and the Yunus Emre Institute. Held at the Azerbaijan Cultural Center in Berlin, the event featured a high-level opening session, scholarly panels, a traditional art exhibition, and performances of Turkic music. Speaking at the opening ceremony, Turksoy Secretary General Sultan Raif said the gathering in Berlin was more than a retrospective. It was about revitalizing the cultural bridge that connects the past with the future. Raif noted that generations from the Turkic geography have enriched human history with intellect, spirit, and aesthetic sensibility. He underscored the significance of Divani Lugati Türk, authored by Kashgarlı Mahmud, describing it not merely as a dictionary, but as a cultural atlas. The goal of the conference was not only to highlight the cultural and scientific contributions of the Turkic world, but also to reintroduce its shared heritage to an international audience from a fresh perspective. Uzbekistan and Turkey are increasing their outreach to Afghanistan's Taliban-led administration. Our Tamim Bahis has the details in Kabul.
Uzbekistan and Turkey are stepping up their engagement with the Taliban-led government in Afghanistan, signaling a deepening regional approach focused on dialogue over isolation. In a recent interview with Uzbek media, Abdulaziz Kamilov, the Deputy Secretary of the Security Council under the President of Uzbekistan, underscored a clear message. The people of Afghanistan need support, not pressure. Kamilov emphasized that Uzbekistan is following a consistent, pragmatic and principled policy in its dealing with Afghanistan. He called for the launch of a comprehensive international dialogue that includes the Taliban regardless of their current recognition status. He added that recognition is inevitable and should not be a precondition for engagement. Meanwhile, in Kabul, Afghanistan's acting foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi met with Turkish ambassador Cenk Onal. The two discussed bilateral ties, recent regional developments and areas of mutual interests. According to a statement from the Afghan Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Muttaqi expressed appreciation for Turkey's continued assistance and described the relationship between Kabul and Ankara as growing stronger. The active outreach by Uzbekistan and Turkey reflects a regional trend favoring constructive engagement over isolation, a message these countries believe could lead to stability and long-term peace. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for AnewZ.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.